Hello and welcome to our show, Lead Me Home. I am Mary Beth Maestre. And as usual, I pull things from the Bible after I've spoken and interviewed my guests. So this time, I've taken it from Titus 2, verses 3 to 5. And listen to what this one has to say, especially you older women, us older women out there. Listen to this one. Teach the older women to be quiet and respectful in everything they do. They must not go around speaking evil of others and may not be heavy drinkers, but they should be teachers of goodness. These older women must train the younger women to live quietly. I like that line. These older women must train the younger women to live quietly, to love their husbands and their children, and to be sensible and clear-minded, spending their time in their own homes, being kind and obedient to their husbands, so that the Christian faith can't be spoken against by those who know them. My next guest has experienced these words over and over again. And as we go through her testimony, I want you to figure out who the older woman was in her life as she was growing up into adulthood. So listen carefully and see who her mentor was. So let me now introduce Mrs. Rhonda Lecky. Hi, Rhonda.
Hi, and thanks for inviting me.
Lovely. I'm so glad I got you. I've had Rhonda's husband, Mr. Paul Lecky, on the show, so I finally got Rhonda to agree to come on as well. Thank you so much, Rhonda. Okay, we go through, for the viewers' sake, the history, your past history, where you're born, schools you went to, parents, your faith, different things. Should we get started?
Okay. Well, I was born in Kingston, Jamaica. Both parents are Jamaican. Most of my family are Jamaican. And it's a Catholic family, and I always went to Catholic school. So I was schooled in Jamaica at Holy Childhood, the elementary school, Holy Childhood, preparatory as it is called over there. And then I later went to Holy Childhood High School, where I graduated.
Who ran the school? What type of
It's the Franciscan Missionary Sisters. The school is run by Franciscan Missionary Sisters. It's actually a Jamaican order, right? We have Order of St. Francis there, OSF, and we have that school which is Immaculate Conception, and then we have the Franciscan Missionary Sisters, a Jamaican order that started the Holy Childhood School.
Okay. So all the nuns there are Jamaican. Is that
not always, right? But majority of the Franciscan Missionary Sisters are Jamaican, because it's a Jamaican order, yes. And I was always influenced by them my entire school life. I remember as a child, I had to stand outside every morning. We had to say the rosary. We had a nun by the name of Sister Margaret Mary, and she would lead us in the rosary. She was not Jamaican. However, and her pronunciation was not very clear. But
she was an American?
I think so. It sounded Irish. I'm not sure, right? Sounded, And we would say the rosary, so we would just listen to her and repeat the rosary. So when she says, Holy Mary, Mother of God, blessed art thou among women, but she would say, ameng meneng. It sounded like ameng meneng. So when I'm growing up as a young child, I didn't know all the words, so we would say it. And I'd say, blessed are you ameng meneng, instead of among women, okay? So, but we had to say all the prayers, okay? It was very tedious standing in the sun, and sometimes I think they could have made us sit down. But in those days, you did what you were told.
To do, right?
And so every morning you would go through the rosary. Anyway, outside of my school life, I was born to a young set of parents. My mother was only 15 years old, and my father 19. They got married, but I think it was after she was pregnant. But it wasn't as people say, that's a shotgun wedding. No, it was that in those days, people didn't want to have children that were called bastard children. Okay, I heard that story. So they told them they had to get married, but my mother and father didn't mind because they thought they were in love, you know, they were very much in love. So it was not a forced wedding, but it didn't last. By the time I was 2, they had separated, okay? And my mother was sent away to school in the United States. Then I grew up with my grandparents, the parents of my mother.
Okay, so those basically
my grandmother was mommy and my grandfather was daddy. I call them mommy and daddy. My mother is more like a big sister to me, okay? My father, they didn't allow him into my life too much until I became a young teenager and I demanded to go and see him and spend time with him. But I love both of them still. Anyway, I never needed anything. Let me please tell you, I was never hungry. I have to tell you that. My grandparents provided for those needs.
As well as your spiritual needs.
As well as we had to go to church. Yes, yes. So as well as the spiritual needs. Went to church every Sunday, went to Sunday school, did your first communion, did confirmation, everything. Okay, so all of that was done. And I always had, I wouldn't say I was always very good. Sometimes I was mischievous, if I remember very well. But I was always guided, and I was always given a sense of that God is there and He's looking over you. The little prayer, gentle Jesus, meek and mild, look upon your little child. And even that, pity my simplicity, but I would say, pity my simple city.
There we go again.
I guess he knew what I was saying. But I remember, pity my simple city.
Simplicity of Jamaica.
Simplicity, yes. Okay. Oh, I remember that. I remember very much so. I remember at Easter at home, you were told to be quiet. It's a holy day, Good Friday. No playing, no running up and down.
Same thing. We were brought up the same
Yes, that's how it was. And even as I grew up, if you're passing a Catholic church or so, you'd make the sign of the cross. You would not blow your horn. You know, when I see people revving past the church now, I wonder.
Yes.
But those were the
good holy traditions and customs
that we exactly. When a nun entered a room, you stand.
Yes.
You know, we would stand. So all of that gave way as I grew up. You don't see it that way anymore. Anyway, a lot of religious sisters had influence on my life. I remember one nun, even when school was over, we used to go over to the convent to make guava cheese.
Oh, nice.
I have to tell you, because we had some guava trees, and she would have us make guava cheese. Now I'm seeing that sold as a delicacy. People buying guava.
Yes, definitely. I'd
but
love
we
some
used
of that
to make
right now.
Yes. We used to do things like that. Help with whatever fair, May fairs, whatever. But there was always this education. Apart from your academic education, there was always this education into the Roman Catholic religion in the school. You know, we had catechism as a class. So you learned catechism and you learned the prayers and all of those things, going up through Holy Childhood High.
I think you said even you crowned Mary.
Yes, that's when I was in the high school.
Okay.
In the prep school, we didn't really have the May Queen, but we had it at the high school. And when I entered the high school, I became a sodalist. a society of dedication to our Blessed Lady. It's a Marian society formed by a Jesuit priest in the 1600s. But this tradition still went on with the school. You had two clubs. You had clubs. So you had the sodality, and you had what is it again? I don't know why that slipped me.
Yeah,
anyway,
okay, that's all right.
you had what is Sacred Heart.
Okay.
The Sacred Heart Club. We had the Sacred Heart Club, and that one was more focused on Jesus and that. So we would have after-school activities that involved
that as well.
Those things. So we knew about those, and we had to go to church every first Friday in the high school. The first Friday of every month was compulsory. Everybody went to church. If you didn't want to go, because let's say you're at school but you're not a Catholic, then sister would ask you, well, if you don't want to do what we do, then you shouldn't be coming to this school. That's how it was then.
Put you in your place.
Yes.
And that's
so
how
she would offer, if the parents had a problem with them going to church the first Friday, if you have a problem, I'll gladly sign a transfer.
Oh dear.
So everybody would want their children to go there because the school was good.
Yes.
So they would let them go. So we all went to church. Every first Friday of the month we went to church. And other days too, but that was the compulsory day. The school started late that morning because we went to church first. And the school was strict in a way, so they taught you to be ladies. It was the high school was all girls, and you had to behave like a lady. So I remember when the lunch bell rang for you to go and have lunch, you would try to rush to the tuck shop, as we called it, to go and get your lunch. And if you didn't go early, you could stand a chance that something nice is finished, okay? So the bell rang this particular day, and I'm running because I want to get to the shop.
Not quite the lady.
And I saw the habit of Sister Mary Stephanie just around the corner, just like the wind blew a little piece of it. So I slowed down and I started to walk, but she knew.
That you've been
Somehow
running.
She knew I was running. So she stopped me and spoke to me for long. That made me so late for lunch. But she said, "Why were you running?" And I told her no. Right? And she probably knew I was running, and so she spoke to me, and I told her, well, you have to run if you want to get your lunch and you want to get something that you like. So I always had an argument for everything.
An answer for it all.
So I remember I didn't even realize it then, but she took a keen interest in this little feisty little girl.
Yes.
That's how I think she must have looked at me.
She probably thought you needed help.
Yes. So she would ask me certain things. I remember my cousin was in that school, and she was always very good with languages, and there was a event for languages that evening, and she had painted her nails for the event. Now, the morning we went to school, and Luz did not get a chance to take off the nail polish. So sister said, "What is that on your finger?" But when she said it, my cousin was frightened to answer, but I said, "Nail polish." And then she said to me, "I know it's nail polish, but should she be wearing it?" And then I said to her, "Well, it's either that she wore it and came to school on time, or she took it off and came to school late."
So you had the answer for your cousin.
I remember that, yes. Anyway, again, I said, she took a keen interest in me because this went on through my school life at the high school. We had an intercom system, and if you are in problems or if something is wrong, they call out your name to come to the office. So this particular evening, names are called to go to the office, and my name is there. Rhonda Dixon, that was my name at that time. Will you come to the office? So of course you're frightened, you don't know what you did. You start to examine yourself. What did you do? I couldn't think of anything. Anyway, when I went in, it was Sister Mary Stephanie that wanted to see me. And her question to me was, how many hours did you study last night?
Oh my goodness.
How much work. I was in 4th form at the time. We have 5 years of high school, and you're coming on to do your O-levels, or, what they call CXC now. So she said, how many hours did you study last night? And she looked at me stern. I couldn't tell her I didn't study, so I said 2 hours.
The lie came out just like
I
that.
told her a lie. I said, but I'm going to tell you about me. I was so guilty for telling her that lie that I went home and I made sure I doubled up the next evening. So, because she would ask me this every now and then, how many hours? And then go further to say, what did you study?
Oh my goodness, so you had to have something ready to answer her.
So this lady influenced my career, my studies, because she would check on me all the time. What did you study? There was even a time when I thought I wasn't going to go on to study at sixth form, and she got me back to do the commercial 6 because I told her I want to go and work, I want to go and do this. Yes. I remember speaking with her in that office until I came out of my shoes. I was barefooted, and she says, I want to see you at school tomorrow morning. I said, tomorrow? Why not Monday? Because tomorrow was like Friday or Thursday. And she's telling me tomorrow. I said, well, I'll come back on Monday. She says, no, tomorrow. And when I got to school, she would be out front waiting.
Oh my
Good morning, Miss Dixon. This morning. And I go to my class. I had to study with her.
Yes,
she pushed me. She was.
That's wonderful. Now you're going to graduate from that, and you're going to go on to, is that UWI?
Yes. When I graduated from school, she always kept abreast of me. When I graduated from school, I went on to UWI. I did mass communication. It was at the time when I was accepted, it came in the newspaper, 3 young people were accepted to do this postgraduate diploma in mass communication. And because I didn't have my first degree yet, and so that was a big thing.
Yes.
But I did do it, and I graduated, and I was sent.
How many years was that?
That was one, not an academic year, so you'd call it like a year and a half.
Okay.
Right? And then I was sent to Trinidad and Tobago television, TTT, because you could choose where you'd want to go if you pass at a certain level. And I went to Trinidad and Tobago TV. I hear they no longer have that. Because they had color TV, and in Jamaica we were still using black and white television. Okay. Hope I'm not letting go of my age, but yes, that was it, right? So I did that, and when I came back to Jamaica, Sister was always there behind me. I taught also at Holy Childhood High School. I went on to do management studies. I got a degree in management studies with Sister behind me. I remember meeting my husband while studying for my management degree. Sister Stephanie was always, she knew my life, she knew my friends. I introduced her to my friends. She knew my girlfriends, she knew my boyfriends, she knew
everything.
Anybody that I took a liking to that my parents, my grandparents, or my aunts never liked, they would discuss with her as well. And I knew she put down some heavy prayers for me. I know she did. And I thank her for it.
Thank you for that. Okay, let's stop there. Let's stop there. But living on a beautiful note of this Sister Stephanie. I'm sure you're guessing already. But Sister Stephanie playing a big role. What I like you said, even your parents would use her.
Yeah, they would speak to her.
Because to speak to her to hope, knowing you would listen to her.
Then I was her. She was my mentor.
Yeah, mentor. Okay, isn't that beautiful so far? This role model we see in older women. We'll take a break there, and when we come back, we'll continue on Rhonda's story.
I went to church and just sat there and listened. I really didn't absorb anything. I think I just found myself believing that I didn't need God. I just had everything under control, and church was actually a burden to me. I had this sin that I carried in my heart for a long time, and I told myself for many, many years that the Lord wouldn't forgive me for this. When Father in the confessional says, your sins are forgiven, there truly is a feeling of weight lifted off. I don't care if it's 2 or 3 little sins that you're carrying, there's a feeling of I can breathe deeply again. I feel pure inside, and I'm ready to come to Mass. You can have a beautiful car, a big fancy home, If you don't have Christ in your life, there's an emptiness that's there. When you come home to the church, you're coming home to a Catholic family where people today just embrace you.
If you've been away from the Catholic Church for whatever reason, we invite you to take another look. Visit CatholicsComeHome.org today.
Hello, and we're back. And let's continue on Rhonda's story. But I know you're guessing already who that older woman and mentor was. And we'll see that person continuing to play a big part in Rhonda's life. So we'll continue on our story, and we left off, Rhonda, when you sort of did your postgraduate before your graduate.
Yes, I did. I did a postgraduate diploma in mass communication before I did my degree, my bachelor's degree.
My goodness.
Yes,
okay.
But all along I was being pushed to focus, not pushed, but I was being led to focus on my career. Okay? Also, hidden in that, I also wanted to serve. I felt like I would like to be the first female prime minister of Jamaica because I wanted to make sure that everyone had a house and basic meals. Not a fancy house, but something strong enough. I thought that was everyone's right. And so as a young person, I wanted to do that. Anyway, when I went in to do my degree, there were many persons who influenced me outside of Sister to say, a lot of politicians, they don't understand management. That's what they would say. I think you should change from doing a degree in government to management. And I did listen to them, and I'm happy I did. And
so then you soon gave up the idea of politics.
Faculty. Yes, I gave up the idea of politics. But I still felt like it is
the justice part.
We all should have a home, a roof over our head, and basic food. I've always felt that way.
Yes.
Okay, so I changed to the management studies. Some of the courses were difficult. One of the reasons why I didn't really lead into management in the beginning, I didn't really like mathematics, but I realized that you can teach yourself mathematics. So I worked hard at it, and I got through. I did. Okay. When I did mass communication, which is the postgraduate diploma, I was given a choice based on your performance of somewhere to do an attachment, because apart from the 18 months, you would be sent away or sent to an institution for 3 months to do an attachment. And I chose to go to Trinidad and Tobago because they had color television.
Okay, that's
And in Jamaica, we still had black and white TV. And I got my first choice. And I went to Trinidad and Tobago, and I worked with Trinidad and Tobago Television. I remember I was sent out on a dispute between Venezuela and Trinidad for the border for the water, the sea.
Okay.
Where are you able to fish, or where you should not be able to fish if you're Venezuelan? This is where you stop, and so on. I remember
similar to what we're going through.
What we are going through now with Guatemala. Yeah, there was a dispute of the border, fishing border. I remember doing that very much, and it was very interesting. Okay. And when I was finished that, I went back to Jamaica, and I graduated with a postgraduate diploma in mass communication from the Institute of Mass Communication at University of the West Indies, Mona. I went back out to work in that field with Jamaica Information Service, and at some point it was also called Agency for Public Information. Okay. And I did educational magazine programs. I remember, I can't get away from my mentor. I remember getting to do a program on I did a program on the St. Vincent de Paul Society.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So she encouraged that?
She encouraged that, yeah. And whilst doing all of those things, I wasn't sure what I really want to be. I thought of several things. I thought maybe I'd be a good actress. I thought I would go into the movies. I wanted to teach. I wanted to teach. And I also thought maybe I should be a nun. I think I wasn't sure if I had the calling. But one thing was bothering me. How am I going to be a nun when I love to dance? I really love to dance, and I love children. So one day I think maybe I should have children of my own. So I told that to Sister. I could tell her everything. My friends, whoever, and I know many times she prayed very hard for me, as I say all the time.
She probably wanted you to become a nun, didn't she?
I think so, because she would tell me stories about persons who like sports, had a sports car, and now they're a nun, and all of that, and it doesn't stop you from having fun. And you can have children. She had a lot of children, many
Spiritual children.
From the school, because she had all of them. She considered her kids.
Her children.
Yes.
Like yourself.
Yes,
like
right,
yourself.
right, because I considered her like a mother too. So. And she was Mother Superior at one time. They take it for a little while. So she was Mother Superior of her order at one time. And we called her Mother Stephanie too.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I did go into the aspirants meeting. And I can tell you, people feel that if you want to be a priest or a nun, when you go and tell them, they're just going to grab you and you can't get away again. Nothing of the sort. We went and we prayed for whatever is our vocation. If it's the single life, let you be whatever. If it is the married life, let you be a good wife and mother. And if it is the religious life, let you deal with that in a professional way. So we always prayed that prayer. So there was nothing that grabbed you because you said you want to be a nun, so they're going to grab you and you never get out. So I had my chance to pray about my vocation.
So that was beautiful too.
It was.
Yes, even, I mean, because you...
And so you're always praying. I've always been told to talk to God. So in my mind, I would talk with him all the time, till this day. Right? Some people feel prayers are just by rote, but I talk with him. And I quarrel with him.
I think he likes that one.
And I say, why can't you send me a letter and tell me what I'm to do? I can't make up my mind on something. I just don't know what I'm to do. Am I to do this or am I to do that?
You must have loved this.
Can you send me a letter? Send me a telegram. In those days, we said, tell me what to do. I remember that.
No, it'd be send me a text.
No, it would be send me a text, right? And I used to argue with him and say, tell me what to do when I don't know what to do. Because even when I made the decision later on in my life of who to marry and so on, I asked him, should I or should I not?
Important question.
And then you won't send me a letter. Send me a sign to tell me.
Not realizing he was sending signs in all different ways, just not in the form of a letter. Okay, so you are keeping your faith going. Of course, Sister Stephanie's right there with you. But we're going to have your temporal, I won't call it this, well, I would call it spiritual temporal turning point. And someone comes into your life after you've been begging God, what should I
all along.
So let's hear the story about who came into your life.
Well, I remember I would always talk with God, even about my work when it's hard and so on. In those days, we didn't have the electronic media that students have now, where they just can look up things on the internet. So I needed to do a paper for economics class. And the book was an overnight book because it was in demand. And you couldn't get it for more than one night. And by midday the following day, you had to
return it, huh?
Well, that morning too, I had a doctor's appointment as well. And I went. And I took the book. So while I'm waiting to see the doctor, I'm reading this econ book, Business Economics. A big book. And I can't waste time because I have to take the book back by midday. So I'm reading this book. I saw this man sitting across the way, young man, reading the newspaper. I kind of saw him. I said, I know that man from somewhere. I don't know where. But I don't have time to figure out where I know him from. But he just seemed familiar. I don't know. So I kept reading the book. I understand from him later that he saw me and he says, is she a little child or is she a young girl. I would hate to be robbing the cradle by speaking to this. She looks so nice. That's what he told me that he was saying. And
just
but the book.
Let me tell the viewers, when I interviewed them, he said he had the newspaper up, and every so often he would put the newspaper down and peep over at her, then put the newspaper back up again. So he was eyeing you, let me tell you.
I was trying to read my book. But then it is a book that made him say that he could say hello, because he said she can't be that young if she's reading business econ. So it was a book that gave him the strength to call out to me. Anyway, I was called in to the doctor's office, Rhonda Dixon, and I went in innocently. I came out, and you paid for the visit, and I'm coming out, and I heard the person say, Miss Dixon. So I said, oh, I'm so sorry. I know you from somewhere, but I can't remember where. I'm so sorry. And what is your name? And then he told me his name was Lecky. And I said, oh, are you Michael Lecky's brother? And he says, no, I have no brother by the name of Michael. But later on, I found out that Michael was his cousin.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, we got talking a little bit. I don't know how we spoke for so long. I don't think it was long, but it seemed too long. Because then I told him where I was teaching. I didn't tell him about the university or that I was teaching and also going to, but I told him where I was teaching. Now, the school had 2 shifts, an afternoon shift, and I used to teach across because Sister Stephanie made it so that I would still be studying and I would have a way of
to go teach. So do things.
So I would teach across the shift. I taught principles of business, and also I was a guidance counselor for the school. Okay. And I think that it was successful because I was also young, and the girls would speak with me.
Relate to you, sure.
And I would speak to Sister, and she would tell me what to do.
Okay.
So yes, I think it was a good program. Yeah. And my husband now, he's my husband now, but then the person went to school. He would give notes to a student whose mother used to work where he worked to give to me, and I'd throw them away. I wouldn't even follow them up, honestly. And then he went to the school, and the lady in charge of the office literally begged me, please, could you please call back this person? He has come so many times, and I promise I'll have you call him. And I didn't do it maybe 1 or 2 days, and then I called one day because she said, please don't.
It's a persistent man, wasn't he? Yeah?
So I called him, and then that was the end. We started to speak to each other, and I told him that, we spoke, and I found that he was a gentleman. That's the first thing I must say, and he still is.
Yes, yes.
He was a gentleman, not like other young men. He was very decent. I don't know. That attracted me to him. Okay? And so you would think that he met me, and so we spoke, we got to know each other and all of that. And then later on, when I realized he was a gentleman, and
a family man.
And a family man.
Said,
oh yes.
With his own
7.
Family.
Yeah. He has. He is from a family of 7 children, where I am from a family of 3. My grandmother, though, had 5 children. So, and I grew with her. But he was a family man. He thought a lot of his mother and his father and his uncles and so on. And I would meet the family. And all along, he was a gentleman.
Beautiful.
Right?
Of course.
So we got...
One question. Sister Stephanie got to meet him?
She got... Oh, yes. Oh, I took him to meet her. Because when we got to talking, very quickly, my now husband was too quick, if you ask me, wanting to get married. And I said, no, not until I'm finished my studies, right? That's not it. But on top of which, when I found out he was not a Catholic, he was a Methodist. And I said to him, well, then I can't marry you because you have to be a Catholic for me. And he thought about it. I said, what will Sister Stephanie say?
Oh, my goodness. Yes.
So I took him to meet her anyway. But he came to church with me. I remember when I went to church, someone at school, at the university, said to me, I saw you at church on Sunday. So I said, why didn't you come over and say hi? And they said, because you were with your father. No, my husband always, no, he's my husband, he always looked much older than me.
Well, because of his height.
Because of the height and the bald head. He was bald very early.
Okay.
So they thought he was my father.
And you're so petite, yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I remember laughing because it's not my father and they're thinking this person is my father. And I were afraid to come over and say hi because it was my father that I was at church with. Anyway, I took him to meet Sister Stephanie. He decided he wanted to get married to me. He went on his own to see the priest of the church at Holy Cross, Father William Connolly. And Father Connolly gave him classes to become a Catholic. And he gave him all kinds of books to read, some very heavy books that I remember Sister Stephanie actually told me later on that she spoke to Father Connolly and said, why are you turning off these young people by giving them when they're trying to do the right thing?
Yes.
All right. So, yes, my husband now is Catholic because he became Catholic before we were married. Mm-hmm. And we got married.
Father
Connolly married us. He was a priest, and I had another. It was two priests that did it, and Father Kong. But Father Connolly was instrumental. And Sister Stephanie helped with the planning of my wedding. Sister Stephanie told the florist that it is her daughter who is getting married, so everything must be perfect. And I remember when I went to that church, I couldn't believe how beautiful the church was with flowers and palms and everything all over the church. It was really very beautiful. Oh, I have a few pictures still that might show some of it. Some of them are faded. But it was really beautiful. Everything.
Let's stop there. Mm-hmm. Viewers, I continue to show you this. Like I said, you've guessed already, of course, it's Sister Mary Stephanie. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Can you imagine telling the florist that she wants everything done perfectly because her daughter is getting married? Yes. Oh my goodness! Talk about the influence and the influence, but so it was a big turning point. And when I did Paul's story, of course, the turning point for him was his conversion. Mm-hmm. So it's because of Rhonda that Paul converted and came into the Catholic faith. Mm-hmm. And behind all of this, you can imagine, is Sister Stephanie. Mm-hmm. We'll be right back, viewers.
I went to church and just sat there and listened. I really didn't absorb anything. I think I just found myself believing that I didn't need God. I just had everything under control, and church was actually a burden to me. I had this sin that I carried in my heart for a long time, and I told myself for many, many years that the Lord wouldn't forgive me for this. When Father in the confessional says, your sins are forgiven, there truly is a feeling of weight lifted off. I don't care if it's 2 or 3 little sins that you're carrying, there's a feeling of I can breathe deeply again. I feel pure inside, and I'm ready to come to Mass. You can have a beautiful car, a big fancy home. If you don't have Christ in your life, there's an emptiness that's there. When you come home to the church, you're coming home to a Catholic family where people today just embrace you.
If you've been away from the Catholic Church for whatever reason, we invite you to take another look. Visit CatholicsComeHome.org today.
Viewers, now you're getting the message, you get the idea. It's Sister Mary Stephanie has been like a mother. Think about it now. Rhonda's mother had her when she was 15, and she'd been raised by wonderful grandparents. But still, there was probably something. This is I've come to this conclusion. There was something still missing that Sister Stephanie saw in her to fill that little gap, that motherly gap of wanting to help. I'm sure she did this for others, but I think you had to be very special. I mean, would you say that there weren't others?
No, she did it
to others, but not as probably not as much.
But
as
you know,
this
I want to feel very special.
Of course. So we see this beautiful image of this nun who's been a principal, who's also been a mother superior, taking an interest, a special interest in Rhonda. Okay, Rhonda, so now you've graduated, you're working. Where are you going to, what other places are you going to start working at now? Because you're still...
I worked with the Jamaica Information Service. That's the first place. And as I tell you, when I developed a program, because it was television programs that I was doing, called the New Kingston Civic Association, the development of New Kingston, I was approached by persons who thought that the program was excellent and if I would like to come and work with them. But they were afraid to ask me because they thought I enjoyed what I did so well. So I said, why don't you try me? And then when they asked me to go, and what they offered me was much better than the media. And at that time, I haven't said anything yet about us having kids, but at that time was in collaboration with me having my first child.
Okay.
And you know, life is a bit expensive and rough. So I said, this might be the opportunity. So I took the job. And I worked with the HMO Jamaica through Life of Jamaica, developing educational programs for a new type of health insurance. And from there, I got my name in the insurance industry. Sister Stephanie was always there. I always speak to God. Like people will say, when do you pray? Do you break at midday or do you break at 4? I will say that throughout everything, I always in the back of my mind, I'm speaking to God. All right? Even before I met my husband, I would speak to God even about my friends, you know? Anyway, so I worked with Life of Jamaica. Before I worked with Life of Jamaica, working at GIS, I had my first child. And his name is Ron Paul Lecky. Now, Ron Paul got that name because I'm Rhonda and my husband is Paul. And in those days, you didn't do testifying whether it's a girl or a boy. Yes. And each of us want to name the child after us, so we named a combination. Rhonda and Paul Lecky. So his name is Ron Paul Lecky. When I got pregnant the second time, I didn't know what I'm going to have, whether it's a girl or a boy. But of course, because I had a boy before, I was hoping it was a girl. So it was a boy. So Sister Stephanie is even at the hospital with me. Okay? And when I realized it was a boy, I said, it's a boy and I don't even have a name. And she said to me, name him Stephen, because she's Stephanie. And so
the male version.
Yeah, so I named my son Stephen after Sister Mary Stephanie. I love Sister Mary Stephanie very much to this day, even though she's not here on earth with us anymore, but I'm sure she's in heaven. And she was very influential. And my kids know her. She is the godmother for all 3 children, because I also had a third child.
Which was your girl?
Yeah, I got the daughter. So, and she is the godmother for Ron Paul, Stephen, and Crystal. She influenced them as well. I'm not saying that they are like I am, but she used to take them on a Saturday and teach them about Catholicism and the church and everything. And she wanted my son Stephen to be an altar server, to serve at her 50th anniversary as a nun. Oh, dear. And my big son didn't want him to be that, and so he told him, no. So when she spoke to him, my Stephen said, Sister, you really want me to put on a dress and go up on the stage? And she was hurt by that. I felt so bad because she said, Rhonda, what are you teaching these children? Okay.
And go up on stage.
Yes, you want me to put on a dress and go on stage? I always remember that. Anyway, I was there for her 50th anniversary as a nun. I spoke at it and everything. I love her very much. I came to Belize. I called her from Belize. I gave her Mother's Day gifts and everything because she was a mother to me.
To you.
She was, it's not that my mother is not a mother, you know, but this person was I could talk to her. She never, even though you would fear her somewhat, but you would be open and speak with her. She'd never chastise you. She'd find a soft way, a soft approach. You know, always a soft approach to guide you. And
makes a world of difference.
Yes, it does. It does.
Rather than the scolding.
It was a soft approach even to my education. You know, when I wanted to give up and go and work so that I could get money, and I would work, but she would make sure when I did management studies, it was from a bursary that I got from the Franciscan Missionary Sisters.
From them as well.
Yes, okay. Yeah. So that was so. Now, my prayer, I've always been active at church, as I told you, even at school with the sodality. And I've always spoken to God. I know He exists, and I know that He wants me to do good. And I try to do. I'm not saying I do good all the time, but I try even when it's difficult.
Holy moments.
Yes. I try even when it's difficult. I've had some very difficult moments. Even coming to Belize was difficult because I was in the midst of my career when my husband decided that he wanted to relocate to Belize. And it's actually an aunt of mine that encouraged me. Your husband wants you to go with him. And I felt very guilty, like I don't. So I decided to come to Belize. And
that couldn't have been easy. Like
it wasn't easy.
To pack up children.
It was not easy. It was not an easy thing. Really wasn't. And I know about depression because when I came, I was depressed. I missed home. I still do miss home sometimes. I miss family and so on. There were times when Sister knew that I was depressed and she was telling me to come back to Jamaica, you know. But while working here, it was actually May, the month of our mother.
Okay.
All right. It was Labor Day, May 23rd, that Sister Stephanie died from obviously a heart attack.
Oh.
All right. And when I got the news, it was devastating. And I went back. I was able to go back for the funeral, even though things were tight. I had a trip with the company around the same time. And when I changed my flight arrangement so that I could go for her funeral before, the flight was actually cheaper than if I didn't go to her funeral.
Okay.
I'll always remember that, and sometimes I sit down and think and said, if she's speaking to God, I think she arranged that.
She arranged that cheaper fare.
Yes, she arranged
so that you could be there
for her
at her funeral. Okay, it's beautiful. An old story. But tell us now about your jobs in Belize. You're moved to Belize now.
When I came to Belize from Jamaica, I told my husband I couldn't come unless I had a job because my first child had just gone off to college. And I said, we can't go to a strange place and we have all of these things. Anyway, when I came, I got an offer from a Universal Health Services here. And I came here as an insurance specialist.
Okay.
And I worked with them, and I was always told by the head of the company at the time, Dr. Victor Lizaraga, are you a pioneer? If you're a pioneer, because we're building and so on. I got involved with church, of course.
Something happened.
So we looked around, and we went to a few churches. We went to St. Joseph's and whatever, but we found Divine Mercy. At Divine Mercy Church, Father Sebastian was here at the time, and he was a very soft and loving priest.
Yes.
He got me involved. I became a lector. I went to different... I remember, I can't remember, I think it was the Holy Spirit, something to do with the Holy Spirit.
Charismatic.
A talk on the Holy Spirit. And I remember someone in Jamaica, actually my father's current wife in Jamaica told me, I can't be a Catholic because they don't know the Holy Spirit. So when she said that to me, they only talk about the Father and the Son, but they don't talk about the Holy Spirit. So I went and I told Father Sebastian that. And when I told him that, he invited me to this. And then I realized that the Holy Spirit is extremely active in the Catholic Church. I knew it all along, but it wasn't, So I knew I developed my own talk back to her. And when she would want to invite me to go to church when I go to Jamaica, to where she goes, and she would say to me, but she can't see why, because she finds church boring, because they just, right? And I told her, no, and I tell her, when I went with her once, she said to me, so how was it? And I said to her, it was nice. I like what they read in the Bible and all of that, but it's missing one thing. And she said to me, what? What is that? I said, Holy Communion. She said, we have it. We do it every month or something like that, or on a special day. And I said, no, that is what is missing. And I told her that. Right.
Exactly what we have here. Huh?
Right. And then after Father Sebastian came Father Blunt. I'm very much fond of Father Blunt and Father Paul.
The two were together.
Right? Father Blunt and Father Paul became very close to our family. They used to come to my house for dinner. I would invite them sometimes. I went out sometimes. With Father Paul, I remember when they had the La Ruta Maya thing, I went to see it with Father Paul. Yeah. So, and then I decided that I need to get more integrated in Belize. And so it was Jeannie Garrell that came to ask me if I would run the Garrell Center.
Right, because we had the...
Right, and so I said, funnily enough, St. Vincent de Paul was a program I worked on in Jamaica.
Which was similar.
It's the same thing, right?
Yes.
So I came and I got involved, and I fell in love with the people who were in need, in a way, but there were some things I couldn't understand with them. They need so much, and yet... they would have so many children, that's what I would say, and they can't feed them. They would spend a half day to get a little pound of beans or rice, and I would have all of that pat. We would bag the rice and the beans in 2-pound packages, and we'd give them on a Saturday. And clothes, we would lay out the clothes, female and male, by sizes, and we would give them clothes. And we would also visit persons who we knew that were in need on the Saturday, and that I did for years.
Big part of that, of the church, the By Mercy Church at that time.
And I started the Jesse Tree, where we would give gifts to needy people at Christmas, but I would do tags with female 24, female 5, female 2 months, female, male 6 years old, and we'd put those tags on the tree. And we'd ask the members of the church to take a tag, buy a gift for someone that age, and put the tag on the gift and bring it back by a certain date. And at home, even at my home, we would sort these gifts. Sometimes I had to break gifts in two if I didn't have enough. But everyone would get their Christmas gift. Everyone who came to the Garrell Center, we took their names, and other needy persons
got their
Christmas gifts, and we had persons who would deliver the gifts. They would come here on a certain day, and I remember I would say to the children, you cannot open your gift until Christmas morning, all right? You have to wait until Christmas Day. And so I'm driving down the road, and a child is waving, hi, Miss Lecky, or hello. I didn't open my present yet. I didn't open my dolly yet. So I know how they know that it's a dolly. They didn't open it. I would have that, and a number of young people, and they would come to the Garrell Center and they wouldn't even have shoes. They would walk on the road, the paved road, in the hot paved road without shoes. So we used to keep a little can in there, and then the people who actually got stuff, we asked them to drop whatever. So if it's 25 cents, 5 cents, anything in there. So at times when this happened, I would go into the can, I would take out the money, take them in my car to a shop and buy them slippers.
Oh my goodness, yes, all of this. Well, but tell you what, we're winding down, but these are all the different things you did then, to keep, and just to let you know, we still have the Jesse Tree. It's changed slightly, but the whole idea, the custom, everything, and we love it because everyone takes the tag off that tree to buy gifts, and it's not only for, back then you also had it for older people.
Older people as well, yes. We had persons on the committee that would go to the homes and take persons who don't have any family visiting them, and we would do gifts for them as well.
Okay, and then just let's wind down now and tell me about your prayer life. I asked Rhonda for one of her Bible verses, and this is the one she gave me. She gave me Psalm 118, and it says, "This is the day the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it."
This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it. I love that.
So that helps you get through your whole day?
That helps me get through, yes. And I pray my prayer life in the morning before I get up. I must tell you, I remember Father Blunt telling me this, and to this day I remember him saying, Jesus says you're to get down on your knees. I remember one day he told me that because I felt guilty, because sometimes I'm so tired, I lie in my bed and I speak to God while lying in my bed. I speak to him all through the day. If I'm in a meeting and the meeting is going at work, I say, dear God, just look at this. Just look at how this person is behaving. I speak to God all the time. Maybe I could speak to him more. I'm not going to say that I speak to him until he's tired, but I speak with him all the time. I think I spoke with him even about meeting a good husband, right? And I must thank him.
Certainly answered that prayer.
I must thank him now, because I think I have a very, very good husband.
Okay, so viewers, I asked you to guess who that mentor was, or that older woman. Well, we know now it's Sister Stephanie. So basically, what has happened is we've come full circle, because Sister Stephanie was the older woman to much, much younger Rhonda, and now Rhonda, in turn, is doing the same thing as the older woman,
yes.
which we are.
Exactly. I said to somebody today, look, age just flies, you know. I was young yesterday, and I don't even know when I got to age.
So she's doing that to younger women and younger men.
Men, yes.
It's not
men
necessarily
and women.
People at work with you.
Yes, people at work with
people
me.
that you get involved with through the different things that you and Paul do.
Yes, I have sent persons to school as well, and done a number of things like that. So I do have a number of persons that I mentor.
And I know Paul does for younger men as well. Paul does the same thing.
Yes, he does that.
In his career and his work that he does.
Yes, we're both involved.
Involved in that. So there we go. We've come to the end of this story, but now you out there looking at this show, see too how you've heard the verse. That's, I think, was Titus. I put the paper down. Titus 2, I think. 3 and 4, verses 3 and 4. Go back to it. And it's not only just mentoring them, but you yourself have to be a good example.
Yes.
One of the things is not drunkenness.
No. Well,
not gossiping.
No.
And encourage our younger women to be with their husbands, to be with their children, and to be an overall good example to the younger ones. So whoever is listening out there, take on that challenge too, of you being the older person. It doesn't have to be older women. You can be 20 talking to a 15-year-old.
Exactly.
Yeah, or a 30-year-old talking to a 20-year-old.
Exactly.
Just as long as you have a little more experience in them, an experience in the spiritual way, not just the worldly way, because this is not what we're looking at. So, we've come to the end now. Rhonda, thank you so much for being here, sharing this story with us.
Thank you for
sharing.
Me.
I don't think anyone has heard a story, like we said, of a sister taking on that role as a mother.
Yes,
as
she
a
did.
Real mother.
She did.
So I'm sure she has, like you said, her place up in heaven.
Yes, she's in heaven now.
Thanks again. And we always end with a little prayer if we can. And as I asked Rhonda her prayer, and she went back to a childhood prayer, and I love it. So we'll say this little prayer together.
Yeah.
It's called Trust and Obey. Trust and obey. There is no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. Well, Rhonda, you've obeyed quite a bit of Jesus, what Jesus has asked of you. You have done that, and you've seen it through Sister Stephanie as well. So if all of us had a Sister Stephanie, we have it in other ways.
Yes,
it doesn't have to be that Sister Stephanie. But you think now of your own Sister Stephanie, who that older woman may have been in your life. And continue the cycle, do it for another. That's why I brought the statue of Our Lady of Fatima here, because she becomes that role model to all of us.
Yes.
Thanks once again. Thank you to cameraman Louis and Mark. Thank you, viewers, for being here with us and sharing in this story. And I always thank Tom Peterson for allowing us to use his evangelicals. We'll see you next time. God loves you. God bless you.